Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of Wild and Live with me, Patrick Aryee. What is Wild and Live all about? For those of you that are new to the show, this is all about bringing some cool facts and knowledge nuggets to you at home, and we do that through with the help of some awesome people, conservationists, wildlife lovers, filmmakers from across the planet. And today we have a very special guest. Before we get started, please remember we do have a little question text box at the bottom. So if you've got any questions for our guest or about the Scottish coastlines, please, or about the UK coastlines in general, please drop a little question below and we'll do our best to help you. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. I can't even talk. I never can talk at the beginning. I always mess up these things. You know the deal. There's a subscribe button below. Press it. Join the community. It's going to be great. So, our guest today is the Scotland Conservation Officer for the Marine Conservation Society UK. Catherine Gemmell, are you wild and live?
Hello, Patrick. I am Wild and Live and delighted to be here calling from Edinburgh.
All the way from Edinburgh. Thanks for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. We're going to be talking about the wonders of the Scottish coastline. Now, for me, and for many people out there, Scotland is well known for its natural beauty on land. But for many people, including myself, I think that what we don't realize is that it's also famous for, or not famous, but it also has incredible beauty and diversity in its waters. Let's there are loads of marine animals that call Scotland or the coast of Scotland their home. So can we go through what some of those might be? Because I think some people might be a bit surprised.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I've obviously been extremely lucky in that I grew up on a gorgeous piece of Scottish coastline, the Moray coast up in the northeast of Scotland. And we actually have a residential population of bottlenose dolphin that
Wow.
live in the firth. So quite regularly, I would go along to the dolphin centre at Spey Bay and get to watch these amazing creatures feed on the massive salmon that come down the rivers. And because it is pretty chilly up here, the waters are so cold, we're very proud in that they're definitely the fattest dolphins in the world in the Moray Firth.
I wasn't expecting that. So cold waters, massive salmon equals really fat dolphins as well. What other animals can you find? Marine animals can we find in Scotland? I hear you have some sharks. Dum, 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 dum,
Definitely.
dum, dum.
And I think what a lot of people don't realise is we have everything from the smaller sharks that I've been lucky enough to see when I've gone diving, like the small cat sharks, but we've actually got the second largest fish in the sea comes to Scotland every year, and it's the basking shark. So it's second only to the massive whale shark. And it's amazing that these absolute giants come here. And although for those of us who recognise that theme tune and know that dorsal fin coming through the water might get a bit nervous, but I think what's brilliant is these massive sharks eat the smallest things in the food chain in our ocean, the plankton blooms. So most of the time, they've actually got quite a comical appearance. When you see them swimming through the water, they've just got these giant open mouths that look like they're just constantly yawning as
Yeah,
they're trying to filter feed through the water.
that's incredible. Yeah, I was going to say they are filter feeders, and they have those massive mouths that they just swim through the water trying to filter all that food out. Some incredible marine wildlife there. I know that we also get orcas up in Scotland. One of my favourite animals for sure. Where do you go to see killer whales in Scotland?
So, do you know what? They are still the animal that eludes me from having living my whole life in Scotland. And they have been seen in the Moray Firth as well. So now, since moving down to Edinburgh to start the job, I couldn't believe it that I missed the orca when they were in the Moray Firth. But some of the best places, I follow a lot of wildlife watchers on Twitter. So it's a great place to have a look, especially just now. We can still stay connected to the ocean by following all these people who are still living next to the coast and taking photos. So check out some of the wildlife photographers photographers in Shetland, they get the orca a lot. They've got a population around there. Also in Orkney and up and down the west coast in the Outer Hebrides, you'll quite often see the orca, one of the famous ones, John Coe, with his absolutely massive dorsal fin and kind of very easy to spot notch that's been taken out there. So the orca are absolutely spectacular, but you can see them anywhere. It's very similar to all of our marine wildlife. If you ever find yourself next to the coast, just remember to watch out to sea, because you just don't know where they might pop up.
For sure. I'm definitely gonna. That's definitely on my hit list for sure. So hopefully, fingers crossed, one day I can make it to see some of. What was the famous orca's name there?
John Coe.
John Coe. All right, John Coe. Me and you, we got a date.
Yeah.
So, you like we've just kind of highlighted, there's a bunch of super cool animals and lots of marine life that visits the coast of Scotland, and we have a whole bunch of super cool visitors that are about to reach the Scottish shores anytime now. Can you tell us about them?
That's right. So, really excitingly, any day now, we should be having the world's largest turtle visiting Scotland, which I think comes as quite a big surprise to a lot of people. And I didn't know that the leatherback turtle visits Scotland until I started this job 5 years ago. So, it's one of my favourite animals now to talk about, to say to people, you don't have to go to all these tropical places to see turtles. They come to Scotland. And how exciting is that?
Yeah, that's super exciting. And not only that, leatherback turtles are the biggest turtles in the world. I think they can weigh up to, if I've got this right, 1,000 kilograms, a ton in mass
They
of
are
a turtle.
huge.
Yeah, that's like, I
They
mean,
are.
blows my mind. Now let's. They are the biggest turtles. They are also, as their name suggests, turtles. So they're reptiles. So how are they able to survive in the UK? Because I mean, I learned how to dive in the UK, and it's very, very cold. So how does a reptile that needs to keep itself warm, or can't typically keep itself warm through its own body heat or generating its own body heat, how are they able to survive in the cold waters of Scotland?
So it's quite a similar theme to, say, if we go back to our dolphins, the way that they can survive and why they get so fat is because they do develop a layer of fat called blubber to keep themselves warm. And scientists believe that our leatherback turtles do the same thing. So they do have like a thick layer of fat to help them keep warm. But then they've also got some really clever adaptations with how their blood is circulated around the body to help them be able to survive the cold North Sea. As yes, I learned to dive off the coast of Aberdeen, and it's definitely an experience. But I think once you've learned to dive in cold water, we've got some of the most spectacular creatures and things to see. So it's definitely worth it if you're considering it. Definitely give it a go.
Yeah.
But I'd recommend a dry suit, or it's just an excuse to maybe have an extra cake to start your own blubber layer.
I like that, an extra piece of cake. I think I'll probably go for that option.
Yeah.
So we've got these leatherback turtles, these amazing creatures coming to the shores of Scotland. How many of them are migrating here, and also where are they coming from?
So the leatherback turtles, again, they don't do anything by half measures. Their migratory route is huge. They'll be traveling across the Atlantic Ocean, all the way from the Caribbean across here, following their food, which is jellyfish. So probably everyone will be very familiar with jellyfish around Scottish and UK shores. And this is the reason that our leatherbacks are coming across. And the range of the turtle, which is obviously anywhere you could find it, is pretty much around the whole globe, apart from right to the top and at the bottom. You won't find them in the Arctic or the Antarctic seas, but you could see them anywhere else. So again, extremely impressive creatures, and it's always worth keeping an eye out for.
Yeah, yeah. I was doing a bit of research on them, and they can reach as far north as Alaska and as far south as New Zealand, which is incredible when you think about that range and the fact that sometimes adults are thought to make several trips across, whether it's the Pacific or the Atlantic, which is yeah, super impressive. One of the things that I always find quite interesting and impressive about turtles is that they're able to return to the same beach that or at least the same region that they were born, which I mean is yeah, which is really cool. Is that I mean, you kind of touched on why they are coming to Scotland shores, which is jellyfish, and we'll get into that shortly. Are they also coming to our shores to lay eggs, maybe?
So this is actually what we speak to a lot of children about. We use the leatherback turtle to go into schools. We've got a massive, wonderful inflatable one just to show how big they are. He's over 2 meters long, and he
Wow.
has to be inflatable, otherwise he wouldn't fit in our car for going about.
Yeah, didn't think about that.
But this is what a lot of the children ask us is, would we see them on the beaches here?
Mm.
And the only reason that turtles, leatherbacks especially, come onto the beach is to nest. And actually, what's a really fascinating thing I learned about their nests is the temperature of the nests are really important. And depending on the temperature of the nests will determine how many boys and girls there be. So the warmer the nests, the more girl turtles will be hatching. The colder the nest, the more boys. So I then put the question back to them to say, if the leatherbacks were nesting in Scotland,
Yeah.
what would happen? And I said, we'd just get lots of boy turtles, which sometimes half the class are like, yay, that's great.
Yeah.
And then they realize that probably isn't good long term for the leatherbacks. So they definitely have to be nesting in more tropical areas. But again, thinking about the temperature of the nests is actually having quite a big impact on the turtles as well.
Yeah, that it's quite a little miraculous ability for turtles. And I think actually there are some crocodile species that have that also have the whether you're a male or female determined by the temperature of the eggs.
That's right. And I think it's all these extra things when you start kind of putting them into the wider puzzle. Because it was absolutely fantastic when I then had a young girl who's doing this turtle class, and we hadn't talked about climate change or global warming at all yet, but she made the connection straight away. She said, well, does that mean if our planet's heating up, we'll end up with more girl turtles, which could end up meaning not having enough turtles to survive? And I said, you are exactly right. And it's this joining of the dots that's just amazing to see our young people doing. And I think we'll probably agree that we need maybe more of our adults to be joining those dots as well.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. So the leatherback turtles are here not to nest or lay eggs. They are here to feed, predominantly on jellyfish. How much food do they need to eat or get through? How many kilograms or tons of jellyfish are these leatherbacks eating?
So they need to eat a lot. We've talked about how big they are. So that's a lot of jellyfish to kind of feed that size of turtle and also to cope with those cold temperatures. So the reason they come across at this time of year is because it's when we're starting to see what we call the blooms of jellyfish. So this is what we call like a massive group of them. My favorite term, though, is you can also call them a smack of jellyfish.
A smack
I
of
think it's quite a
jellyfish.
good one.
Love it.
And it's these smacks and these blooms that the turtles are looking out for. So when they come across a bloom, they pretty much just go on autopilot, and it's just chomp, 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 chomp all the way through. And they've got, if you have a close look at the head of a leatherback turtle, you'll see this amazing kind of almost hooked mouth. And that's how they can then chomp through that kind of jelly-like thing. Kind of say, if you try and imagine eating a plate of jelly with no knife and fork, you can only use your mouth, it would be a disaster for us. But for our leatherbacks, they've got those sharp things to get them. And then what's more incredible is down their throat, they've got all of these spikes and spines that point down towards their stomach to help that slippery jellyfish get all the way down.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, how do they manage, again, they don't have any hands, they just got these flippers to get this food down the hatch, and like you said, they've got these spikes in their mouth and in their throat, and in their mouth and in their throat, to help stop the jellyfish from escaping. These, Scotland, as we've already discussed, is really important for animals like leatherbacks because it draws in all this wildlife, including the prey that they feed on, the jellyfish. But this is also, in some ways, proving to be their downfall. Can you explain to us why?
It is. So going back to talking about, would we ever see leatherback turtles on the beach in Scotland? Sadly, the only time we have seen them is when they've been in trouble. And we've had quite a lot of what we call stranding. So when turtles have come onto the beach, and it means they've just got very sick. And sadly, a few of them have died. So what we've actually got is an amazing charity called the Scottish Marine Animal Stranding Scheme. Mm-hmm. And they actually then perform an autopsy. So they try and work out, why did this turtle die? And when they've opened up their stomach, they found, instead of jellyfish, lots of plastic, and especially plastic bags.
Gosh.
And what we're thinking is they're now mistaking their primary food source of jellyfish for the plastic that's being thrown away and entering our oceans, which they just can't process.
Yeah, of course, and that's going to spell disaster for those leatherback turtles, as you already mentioned. I've got a picture here of staggering buildup of rubbish. Can you tell us where this is and where all this rubbish is coming from?
Of course. So this is a beach called Arica, and it's at the head of Loch Long over on the west coast of Scotland, actually on the border of the Loch Lomond and Trossachs National Park. And the community at Arica have sadly been dealing with this almost landfill scale amount of marine litter, ocean plastics coming up onto their beach for years now. And I think it's just to give people a snapshot of what is entering our ocean. And this is just one beach in Scotland. There's sadly several others that I know of. And even if you maybe think about your local beach, it's very rare now that we have a stretch of coastline that is completely litter free. So sometimes images like this are really powerful just to show us how much is entering the ocean, and whatever's on the beach is just a snapshot. If that's how much is at the beach in Arica, imagine what else is still out in the water column in the ocean where our turtles are currently swimming.
Indeed. And so what can be done about this? We were talking earlier, and you said that there's been a significant decrease in the amount of plastic that we're seeing at, in locations like at Arica Bay. What was the change, and what can we do in the future to help prevent plastics entering our oceans and waterways?
Of course. So it's quite funny. When I first started this job 5 years ago, I still remember my friends and family trying to describe to people what I did. And they were like, we think she does something with fish. We're not very sure. She spends a lot of time on the beach. And then over that time, we've had amazing, documentaries from Sky Ocean Rescue, from BBC Blue Planet 2, and ocean plastics suddenly became this buzzword that was in every news feed and social media channel. So it's now amazing to see friends and family getting in touch with me to tell the latest news and what actions they're doing. And I think as part of that journey, it's been brilliant to see that there have been successes, because for folks like the community at Arica, it must be so hard to wake up every day and see that beach and just be like, what's changed? What difference are we actually making? And I think one of the best stories is showing how us as individuals can make a difference, but it's got to be as well as industry and governments playing their part as well. And I think a really good example of that is citizen science. So this wonderful concept that anybody can become a scientist. And we do a beach citizen science program where we've got thousands of amazing beach cleaners who, as well as remove all the rubbish of a 100-metre stretch, they fill in a survey. So they're counting how many bottles, crisp packets, wet wipes, all the things that they find. And we then use that data to go to industry, to go to government, to say, look, here's the problem. We need you to change best practice. We need you to change the law, or we need you to stop using something to then reduce it. And we've had quite a few successes in Scotland and across the UK over the last couple of years as well.
We were talking about this earlier, and you mentioned the 5p bag charge. How did that do anything, or did that help?
It helped massively. And I think this is, again, it's the power of citizen science and having the data to show when these things change. So we obviously had been seeing an increase in carrier bags and plastic bags on our beaches. We then knew that the huge issue that they were then giving our turtles. So we knew we had to do something with that data. So we then campaigned with members of the public, with businesses, with other organisations, and basically had made our voice so loud that the governments of the UK couldn't ignore us. And we then saw that the 5p charge come in place at different times, but once they were all in place, our beach cleaners then saw a drop of over 50% of the amount of bags they were finding on their beaches, which is absolutely incredible. From such a small change, we can have these massive differences. But of course, our beach cleaners are now saying it's not just bags on beaches, there's lots of other things. So we need to always then be asking, what's next? What can we do to keep having those numbers going down?
Well, I mean, I certainly think twice about whether I use a plastic bag or trying to take my own bag, at least, so then I use less plastic bags once I get to the store. So good on you guys there for helping us with that. Now, it's not just about protecting areas of coast where the land meets the water, but the water itself as well. And MSC UK, no, I'm going to say that again, MCS UK, because I always get this the wrong way round. So it always catches me out. The Marine Conservation Society, which is MCS, not a Master of Science. So this is the society it does work to help try and designate areas as marine protected areas. So, what is an MPA, and can you tell us what a paper park, in short, what an MPA is, and how you stop it from becoming just a paper park?
Of course. So, marine protected areas, it's almost like when we spoke about national parks at the beginning with the Cairngorms and Loch Lomond, we know about national parks on land and that they've got boundaries and they're to protect, beautiful areas or amazing species. So, it's exactly the same but in the sea. Underneath those waves, we've got amazing kelp forests, we've got amazing creatures, we've got really important habitats that need to be protected, but we need to put a bit of a boundary around them to make sure that they're protected from human impacts as well. So a marine protected area is essentially either a site or a species in a certain place that's then been given a special designation to say why it's important and why it needs protected.
It's a bit like a national park, but underwater.
Exactly. It's an underwater national park. And that term paper parks that you mentioned, this can be kind of what's the term that's used when any kind of protected area, whether it's on land or sea, has been designated. So we know where it is, but nothing's changed as to how it's used or how it's managed.
Right. Okay.
So one of the important things is to get the marine protected area, but then we also have to make sure that it's managed properly and that any rules that are put in place, so whether it's to reduce human impact, so it's to reduce litter, reduce fishing, reduce tourism, we've then got to make sure that those management rules are obeyed and that they're enforced as well, because otherwise we would just have a paper park where it looks great on a map, but it's not actually doing anything for the wonderful sea creatures and the habitats that are there.
I fully agree. And one, I think, good example of this was I was reading up on, it is in Lamlash Bay. When we think about one of Scotland's first fully protected marine reserves, which was established in 2008, there was a great story of two conservationists, Howard Wood and Don McNeish. I'm hoping to do a one show story about this because I thought it was really interesting. They wrote to the government in 1995 to say this is a really special area, it needs to be protected. The government responded at the time by saying that it was of no significant worth, but they knew how important it was to the community and to the wildlife of, I think it's the Isle of Arran. Isle of Arran. And so they kept on lobbying, and they set up the COAST, which stands for the Community of Arran Seabed Trust, and eventually they had this marine reserve established. How important do you think it is to include communities when it comes to conservation?
I think for all conservation, I think message is everybody's got to be involved, and the local community is just so important and can be quite often the first step. I've loved watching the Isle of Arran's journey. My grandpa is actually from Arran, so we've had lots of amazing family holidays there and always had a nice connection. And what they've done at Coast is just incredible. And I know that my manager, Callum, worked really closely with them, I think, since 2003, from, again, using citizen science, but this time underwater with our amazing sea search divers who were recording what species were there and also monitoring to see the impacts of having the no-take zone and having the marine protected area there. But I think and I'm sure Howard and the rest of Coast will agree, it can't just rely on communities. We need industry and we need government to also be playing their part. We need government to be looking at that kind of strategic overview for the whole coast to make sure that all of our species and our habitats are protected. Yeah. But the people who know their coastline best are usually the people that live and work and rely on it. So we have to be listening to them. And I think in this age of digital communication, it's such a great opportunity for communities to be celebrating their coastline and to then be taking actions to help protect it, just like they did on Arran.
I think you're spot on with talking about the fact that it can't just come from communities, it needs to come from government. One of the exciting things about the Lamlash Bay project there with Coast, for me, and again, we touched on this a little bit in our chat earlier this week, was the fact that by protecting that area, it then served as almost like a nursery for other species of fish, for cod. They saw the numbers of shellfish, lobster, and I can't remember what the other crustacean was, but it's allowing life to recover. both from a wildlife standpoint, but also in terms of having a place for fish stocks to actually survive, recover, and it's supporting from a wildlife perspective. You've also got the kelp forests, which act as a great point for sequestering carbon. So there's lots of like moving parts here. So yeah, I fully agree that there was no question there. We're just having a chat. But
I'm just celebrating how great it is.
Yeah, totally. I mean, on that notion, when we think about wildlife, when we think about the fact that we get lots of food from the sea, when we think about how much oxygen comes from the oceans and how much carbon can be fixed, how important are marine protected areas in your eyes?
So they are so important. Actually, just thinking about how important the ocean is in our kind of fight to mitigate the impacts of climate change. It's something that I've learned a lot over the last few years. I think we grow up learning about how important the rainforests are, being the lungs of the planet, and we know how good trees are about taking in carbon dioxide and turning it into oxygen. But what's amazing is all these forests on land, we have them underwater, and we have these amazing kelp forests which do exactly the same thing, and we think might even do it better and actually take in more carbon dioxide and release more oxygen. And even something as simple as the grass that you've maybe got in your garden or in your local park, we've got seagrass as well, and they're another really important habitat for our small fish as a nursery. But more science is now coming out to say that our seagrass meadows are so good at then taking in that carbon and storing it either in their biomass or in the sediments, and then releasing that oxygen as well. So this idea of blue carbon is now beginning to talk about, and this then just again shows how important protecting our ocean is, not just for the wildlife and the creatures, but also for mitigating climate change as a whole too.
Nice, that's great. I was just overlaying some images there that you sent me of underwater kelp forests and then also of that seagrass, really important habitats there. So I mean, I think we're almost at the end. I want to ask what's next for you, but thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. It's I think for me, Scotland is definitely Scotland, and also Wales. I think we here in the UK we don't really, I don't think we have an appreciation, or it's not even that we don't have appreciation. I don't think many people realize how much beauty is out there. And so, no, it's great to have a chat with you, Catherine. What is next for you and the Marine Conservation Society?
So we're obviously gearing up towards one of our big kind of events that everyone at home might like to take part in. So July is known as Plastic Free July. So we're coming up to the plastic challenge. And this year we're just asking everyone to have a look at how much single-use plastic you use. So plastic that you only just use once before throwing it away, and see if you can pledge to reduce how much you use in July. Because what's really powerful is when we do make these small changes, it then changes our demand on supermarkets and shops, so they won't supply it as much. And then it puts pressure on governments as well to be playing their part to be changing the rules. So maybe throughout June, check out the MCS website and see if you want to sign up to the plastic challenge. But ultimately, what we would love everyone to join us doing is just keep celebrating the ocean as well. I'm a big fan of the ocean optimism movement, and it's all about just reconnecting people to the ocean and doing exactly what you say, remembering that here in the UK, we have some of the most spectacular seas and sea life in the world. Not that we're biased at all, but we do.
I think that's So I was going to say it's a perfect note to end on there, but no, thank you so much. I think that's great point to end on. So we've got the plastic challenge in July, but I'll pop a link down below in the description. Head over to the Marine Conservation Society's website, take a look at that and prepare. So is that going on throughout July?
It is. So you can sign up now and start to get chatting to the community who've done it before to give some hints and tips. And then from the 1st of July, it's all about sharing your stories about how you're getting on and how can we all start to reduce the amount of plastic we're using. So it'll reduce the amount that could potentially be going into our oceans and impacting creatures like our wonderful leatherback turtles.
Fantastic, that's amazing. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us today and telling us all about your love for the Scottish coastlines and the wonders that lie in the oceans. Everybody, Plastic Free July, please take a look. And yeah, thank you so much, Catherine. I think we'll all strive to be ocean optimists just like you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Patrick. We'll see you later.
Good stuff. Take care now. Everybody, that was Catherine Gemmell from the Marine Conservation Society talking to us about the wonders of the Scottish coastline. Definitely, I'm going to try and see an orca. That's my goal, to try and film and swim with, hopefully, or at least go whale watching up in Scotland. That's all that we've got time for today. Please tune in again on Friday at 11 a.m. We're going to have another guest. We're going to be talking about more stuff on Wild and Live. So until then, I hope you all have a wonderful couple of days. Oh, nice. I haven't played any of these sound effects for a while, have I? So let's end on one of my favourites. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. I will see you next time. Take care.